Speaking of protests, let's go out to Willard Shepard. He's live right now at the AAA with more on that protest going on right now. Willard?
Yeah, Keith, let me show you the scene out here behind me. This was initially scheduled for over in the Overtown area. There are people out here who are part of the group called Dream Defenders, and also some of you may have heard of Black Lives Matter.
I've only been here for 17 years, and I've been facing discrimination and racism ever since I was born.
It shouldn't have to take us, like, literally committing all sorts of chaos in the city just to get justice.
Justice! Now! Justice! Now! We're actually going by the federal buildings here in South Florida. Our viewers at home can't hear that, but those who are being held here right now are pounding against the window.
Can you set the stage of where exactly you are on the interstate, if you can hear me?
Okay, Alina, we are approaching the entrance ramp to I-95 as they're walking up and walking forward here onto the interstate. Obviously, not advisable thing to do in terms of stopping the traffic just after 6 o'clock here in South Florida. Now the interstate, at least this section of our interstate, has been shut down.
I can't breathe! I can't breathe! I can't breathe!
The protesters off on the east, about 10 yards apart from each other, and they're doing their best on the protesters' side to keep their distance and line at this point. I hate to see this, but now brought into this equation is these group of motorcycle riders that we see during the MLK holiday. You see them, these wheels up, guns down groups who are down on the street below. And I hate to say, as a member of this community, it's the last thing we need to see at this point is another kind of situation to be injected in this. And this is the reaction of the protesters looking down below, seeing them down there on the street. These people here, Lena and Keith, are actually yelling support up to the inmates, the people who have been contained in the federal facility here, charged with a wide variety of crimes, held. They're actually stopping here. This is actually a very poignant moment here.
People signaling in those windows.
This is really what they talked about. You know, I wondered why they made that left turn. It didn't go straight to the police department. This is where the, in essence, in lay terms, what is the federal jail? It's the federal correctional facility where people are held who have been charged with federal crimes and offenses here in South Florida while they are awaiting trial, and if they have actually been convicted, until they are transferred to another federal prison here somewhere in Florida or in the United States. So this is really, really, really a moment for this group, who is sending a message up to those who are held, especially on the west side of the building. There are obviously windows in that building, and they can look out and see what is transmitting down here in the street. I want to let this sink in a moment here as Manny shows that, because that really cuts to the core of the injustice that this group feels is done to minorities across the board, and the unfair incarceration rates in our country of people who've had contact with law enforcement and police and ultimately end up incarcerated. So a tremendous moment here. They've taken another stop here at this location. And again, we are right in front of the main entrance of the federal jail, where people are held when they have been chased federal charges. We are moving up on the interstate. On the loudspeaker, the state police had come out and put their sirens on in their loudspeakers and said, look, it's too much traffic out here. It's extremely dangerous. Do not do this. And you can see that these protesters ignored that warning. And we are now walking westbound on through the construction area where they're going to put up the new bridge to go over on the other side where the Gersten Justice Building is. So they are now headed towards I-95. We're on the walk just north of downtown Miami. The police department did, and the FHP officers, did try to prevent this from happening, but obviously they are not going to hit one of these protesters. So they ultimately allowed them to get up here on the interstate. So anyone, and man, if you can pan around, you see the traffic out here. You can only imagine the traffic coming over from Miami Beach on the MacArthur Causeway headed westbound. That's going to be completely shut down. Miami-Dade police helicopter up above us in a low orbit, keeping a close eye on this situation.
That's where we find NBC6 investigator Willard Shepard. Willard, you are still walking with these protesters. There's now a curfew in place in the city of Miami. And what are you seeing?
Yes, we are on the move here right now back into the downtown area. We went all the way up Biscayne to where the 112 is, and they were attempting to get on the highway, or actually on the Julia Tuttle Causeway, and the police, Florida Highway Patrol, blocked them. We've all been wondering what would happen actually at 8 o'clock, and by my watch, we're about 13 minutes after 8, 14 minutes after 8, and this group is obviously not at home. And beyond the curfew, we've heard some of them yelling things about that they were going to take the street and not pay any attention to the curfew, at least at this point from their behavior that we can see. Some of them meant that. And this large crowd is now headed southbound on Biscayne. We are coming up in a section of it. It stretches so far. It stretches a couple of blocks. There's so many people out here that the front of this is at the Adrian Arts Center, and the rear of it is back at about 16th Street. I was actually trying to go back where we were before. This is the CVS store that where all of this broke out, where we were standing right here. Actually, there was some fireworks that went off here. And Jamie was on the, Jamie Garola, our colleague here at NBC6, was on the Biscayne side of the building, didn't see any damage. There is damage to the CVS. The windows are broken out here on what is the south side of the building. And one of the protesters came up, and I heard, in essence, a scuffle amongst them. There were some who were trying to get inside the CVS store right here on Biscayne across from the American Airlines Arena. We can't show you much from this vantage point, but the glass is actually broken out along in there behind those officers that have been called to this scene. And there was actually a scuffle between the protesters themselves because some were trying to cause a real problem here and actually get inside the CVS store, and others came forward and said, no, that's not what we are here. Do not do this. And that actually caused a confrontation between themselves, and that took place before the police department actually came in here in full force. If you see what has transpired here, they damaged this window. And I heard them, what we were told, that they were throwing rocks. I heard them throwing rocks out here, and we're parked right across the street and had just literally come back from this journey that we took throughout the course of the day. And I heard the glass, shattering, and then a lot of a disturbance between the protesters. We actually thought it was a police department that had come in and gotten into the crowd, but that was not the case. It was actually people who were part of the protest group that were telling others and forcefully making sure that no one else got into this store right here. And there's some more damage here that I'll be able to show you, Keith, as we're walking around on the front of the store here. And this is where they were attempting to get inside the store because obviously the store has been closed and was closed, and they smashed the glass here at the very entry to the building in an effort to get inside. But that did not take place, and from what we see outside of the damage to the glass, they were not able to gain entry into the store, in part because of the security system here, and also in part because of the other protesters in the group who came in and took action so that no one would be able to get inside the store. And that's the only damage of anything like this that I've seen during the course of this day.